It is Thursday, October 23rd, and the Trump administration is now set to break the all-time record on deportations in 2025. Also, judges for the U.S. Court of Appeals clearing the way for Trump's National Guard deployment to Portland and in the state of California. This is a major victory for the president, and the fight between the U.S. and Colombia heating up again. President Petro running off at the mouth again last night. We know what happened after he did that last weekend. President Trump saying, you are on very thin ice. We'll show you.
Deportation numbers hitting record highs since President Trump's return to office. His administration booting more than 515,000 illegal migrants so far. 1.6 million illegals have left the country on their own, with immigration agents arresting 485,000. DHS saying that Trump is set to shatter the U.S. deportation record by the end of 2025.
Brand new DHS statistics showing the Trump administration's now on pace to shatter the all-time deportation record in a single year, with over 2 million illegals sent packing since Trump's second term began. In just 9 months, since January 20th, 2025, the administration has deported over 515,000 illegal aliens. Another 485,000 have been arrested by DHS and pending deportation, and 1.6 million, listen to this, 1.6 million who have voluntarily self-deported, deported themselves because of Trump's immigration policies. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin telling Fox yesterday, this is just the beginning. Illegals are hearing our message to leave now or face the consequences. Migrants are even turning back before reaching our borders, she says, pointing to the 99.99% drop in migration through the Darien Gap, that tiny sliver of land that connects Central and South America. DHS saying they expect to deport nearly 600,000 illegals by the end of Trump's first full year in office in 2 more months, which is likely a conservative estimate because we've already deported 515,000 and there's still 2 months left in 2025. All of this happening in the face of historic pushback from Democrats, from these left-wing NGOs and these legal groups, injunction after injunction by these activist judges, and still they're shattering the deportation record. Unfortunately, we have a long way to go still after what happened over the last 4 years, the Biden administration allowing 10 plus million illegals to just walk across the southern border, 10 million being conservative. There's some estimates that it's double that, nobody knowing for sure. This coming as the Trump administration has successfully banned all immigration judges from giving illegals bond, a tactic that the Biden administration used to facilitate the invasion over the last 4 years. Well, now the Trump administration is reversing that and using it to their advantage. This new court directive changes the game completely. No longer will illegals be able to be arrested for drunken, disorderly, or whatever and get out of jail. If they're illegal, they're undocumented, they're now mandated to remain in jail until their deportation. Watch.
Cheryl, it was a quiet decision released last month that could impact millions of people in the country. A change to how immigration laws are enforced could mean anyone arrested will remain detained until they are deported. But some attorneys are now pushing back. This week, the federal government said in court that since July, more than 1,800 people have been arrested in the Chicago area. But having their day in court is not a guarantee. The immigration court is convoluted. It does not fall under the judicial branch. It falls under the executive branch. Separate from criminal court, a person's rights are much more limited. ABC 7 chief legal analyst Gil Sofer.
The proceedings in an immigration court, they're not criminal, they're civil. The question isn't whether someone has committed a crime. The question is whether they can be deported. And the rights are different.
Now, a new immigration court directive could keep people detained much longer before they're deported. In September, the Board of Immigration Immigration Appeals, the top administrative body which interprets and applies immigration laws, released a new decision. For the first time in American history, the court ruled immigration judges can no longer grant bond for undocumented immigrants who enter the U.S. without authorization, all but guaranteeing mandatory detention for those detained.
It is a monumental decision. It's a change in approach for sure.
DHS calling the ruling, quote, a big win for our ICE attorneys, securing our ability to detain illegal aliens until they are deported. But immigration advocates and attorneys say it's a total sea change.
It overturned decades of case law, of regulations and laws.
Judge Payton is a former assistant chief immigration judge who was fired by the Trump administration this past July. She says without cause. Now she's in private practice and says undocumented people seeking a bond hearing have to hire an attorney like her to file petitions in federal court, outside of immigration court, to try to get relief.
Demanding that the federal courts review the decision of the immigration court and tell them that they're wrong and they should hold a bond hearing.
It felt very dehumanizing.
Tonight at 10 p.m., the I-Team looks at one family challenging this new court directive, all to release their father.
The moment they put him in a van, we didn't know where he was going.
Now, the ACLU has sued the Trump administration over its no-bond policy from being enforced. A hearing in that case is scheduled a week from today.
All because these immigration courts are under the executive, not the judicial branch of government.
Absolutely. Different set of rules, different set of evidence, and different rights for the people coming before the judge. Of course, you're going to hear much more from Judge Payton tonight at 10 o'clock.
What this essentially does is ensure that they can't flee. After they've been arrested, they can't get bond and they can't flee and avoid deportation when they're caught for something. A stark difference between this administration and the last. Just a night and day difference. Under Joe Biden, they even changed the rules so drunk driving wouldn't be a felony and wouldn't require illegals who were caught for drunk driving to be deported. Illegals would no longer be deported for driving plastered. Instead, they'd be thrown in the drunk tank for a night and released a few hours later.
You only arrest for the purpose of dealing with a felony that's committed, and I don't count drunk driving as a felony.
The juxtaposition being huge. Meanwhile, the lawsuits that Gavin Newsom and Oregon's governor, Tina Kotek, filed to try to block Trump's deployment of the National Guard have been overturned. Judges for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit Monday clearing the way for President Trump to deploy the National Guard. Major victory for the president. We've been hearing this large mobilization of National Guard troops would just descend into San Francisco this weekend. Democrats now realizing that they're all out of options. They have no recourse left. San Francisco mayor last night resorting to acting like an adult for once, calling up President Trump and having a respectful conversation. What do you know? Finally, Democrats treating Trump like the president and simply requesting respectfully a little bit more time to solve the problem locally. President Trump posting this on Truth Social today. The federal government was preparing to surge troops to San Francisco on Saturday, but friends of mine who live in the area called last night to ask me not to go forward with the surge, in that the mayor, Daniel Lurie, was making substantial progress. I spoke to Mayor Lurie last night, and he asked very nicely that I give him a chance to see if he can turn it around. I told him I think it's a mistake because we could do it much faster and remove the criminals that the law does not permit him to remove. I told him it's an easier process if we do it faster, stronger, and safer, but let's see how you do. The people of San Francisco have come together on fighting crime, especially since we began to take charge of that very nasty subject. Great people like Jensen Huang, Mark Benioff, and others have called saying that the future of San Francisco is great. They want to give it a shot. Therefore, we will not surge San Francisco on Saturday. Stay tuned. Isn't it amazing? Maybe Democrats should do that more often. Just talk with President Trump directly, negotiate. In another story, the Uber left president of Colombia running his mouth again last night, blaming the flare-up between our two countries on President Trump. Gustavo Petro saying Trump's furious that I don't support the Americans using the Colombian army to invade Venezuela. He wants to turn Venezuela into the next Gaza. Really? Is that what Trump wants to do?
Él es el responsable de haber desatado una política que llevaba a millones de venezolanos fuera y ahora entonces saca a los venezolanos a la fuerza a rajo y a patadas. Y eso no se hace. Pero el primer responsable se llama el señor Trump, y hay que decirlo. No, Boomerang en la política.
El señor Trump lleva 9 meses en el poder en este gobierno.
El señor Trump gobernó antes, amigo.
Sí,
Póngale el primer gobierno y vea lo que pasó allí. Casi que hay guerra entre Colombia y Venezuela. Le da rabia al señor Trump que yo no apoye a los norteamericanos con el ejército colombiano para invadir Venezuela. No, señor. ¿A qué estúpido colombiano se le puede ocurrir ayudar a invadir donde están sus primos, sus sobrinos, su gente colombiana, que hay 4 millones? A que los maten como en Gaza.
In that interview, he also goes on to say he wants to get rid of our president, what many people are taking as a threat. Trump reacting to Petro's comments, warning him to watch it. Be very careful, Gustavo Petro. It's amazing how bad a position you've put Colombia in such a short period of time. Watch what he said.
Thank you so much. The president of Colombia in a recent interview said that if you won't change, he thinks that people should get rid of you.
We're talking about now Colombia, the country, not the university.
Yes.
Go ahead. He said what?
He said that if you won't change, then perhaps you need to be gotten rid of. Do you view that as a threat?
Well, he's a thug and bad guy. He's a guy that is making a lot of drugs. We've just, as of today, stopped all payments going to Colombia, the country Colombia. Also, the school Colombia. No, we settled. We made a settlement with him. But no, he's a thug, and he's a bad guy, and he's hurt his country very badly. They're doing very poorly, Colombia. They make cocaine. They have cocaine factories. They grow all sorts of crap that's drugs, bad drugs coming into the United States, goes generally through Mexico. And he better watch it or we'll take very serious action against him and his country. His country is, what he has led his country into is a death trap.
This is something you don't see too often. Colombia, like many of our non-NATO allies, are in these informal relationships with us. We provide them huge amounts of aid, money, protection in return for basically doing what we want. It's very uncommon, though, for one of their presidents to just come right out and say it, admitting, we don't want to be your proxy anymore. Just remarkable. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.